Screaming Geek Media here. I am Jerry the Geek. Up for discussion in this video, we are going to talk about cables and speaker wire. But before we do, if you like physical media, 4Ks, Blu-rays, DVDs, if you like home theater, movies in general, check out my other videos on my channel. Like, subscribe, and turn your bell notifications on. So this discussion, we are going to talk about cables and wires. I think it's something that gets overlooked a lot. I mean, people out there, you spend tons of money for high-end TV, high-end receiver, or 4K player. But then sometimes you turn around and you don't think about the wires and cables. I mean, you can have the best equipment available, but if you got crappy cable and speaker wire, you're not getting the most out of your system. So I kind of wanted to share my thoughts on some different things, what I use and what I recommend. But basically, we're going to talk about HDMI cables and then speaker wire. We're going to start with HDMI, then we'll come back and talk about speaker wire. Now, everybody out there that's the younger generation that's getting to the home theater now, you guys do not know how easy you have it. I mean, as far as getting into, if you're getting into 4K, you get your TV, you get your 4K player, you got your receiver. All you need is 2 HDMI cables and voila, you're done. Or going back to anyone out there, it's old school, the old analog cables and the composite cables were the RCA jacks. Now you see here, that's how we all started. And basically you had your standard composite audio, left and right. Then you had your video thrown in, so you had your 3 RCA plugs here. Then they stepped up to S-Video when they had a Super VHS. And the Laserdisc format uses the S-Video. So that you see here what the S-Video cables look like. Then for audio, a next upgrade from composite, we had went into the digital realm, and you have here the optical cable, which was able to carry the DTS and Dolby Digital signals. The next upgrade on video, we got the component video, which is pretty much introduced with the DVD format, which actually takes the video stream and splits into 3 different colors. So it splits into 3 signals. Now, when I bought when DVD first came out, I remember Toshiba had 2 models, and I bought the higher end model, which had component video. The lower end did not. It had the regular composite. It might have had SVO, I can't remember, but did not have component. I bought the one with component, and my rear projection TV had component inputs, which finally brings us to what we have now with. Before when it got into high def form, actually it was introduced before the Blu-rays and HD DVD is the HDMI cables, able to produce transmit the high definition signals. But the Blu-ray and HD DVD was launched in trying to remember 2007, I think, that time frame, and I actually bought into both formats when they came out. And yeah, I just could not believe when I got those, a new receiver, new TV, and then I got all the shitload of cables from all this other stuff. I'm like, I don't need this anymore. I got HDMI. I was like, this is pretty freaking sweet. Now here's a little diagram of the actual input of the HDMI. It's actually in 19 pins. And basically, like my receiver here, you can see on the back, and you can see here circled is the HDMI ports. So mine is an older receiver, so it only has 3 inputs and then 1 output that goes to the TV. So any signal that goes into the receiver actually upconverts any signal, and so I only got 1 cable going from the receiver to the TV. New receivers have many more inputs, which is needed. Back at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of HDMI sources out there. And plus, my receiver is pretty standard. So the HDMI on my receiver is not even capable of Dolby True HD. It's still standard 5.1, DTS 5.1. It's never been upgraded to the newer, and some newer stuff. It just cannot process. I just never upgraded that because that's a lot of money. Because I got a Denon receiver here, and it's, Denon's very expensive. So the cables you're looking for is definitely anything newer, the 4K cables. They're labeled high speed. The cable, you need at least 18 gigabyte bandwidth on your cables. That's pretty good standard starting point for 4K. Then for the really high-end cables, you get the 48 gigabyte bandwidth, which is capable of the 8K and whatnot. But if you're looking at like the specs on HDMI cables, 4K started with a 2.0, and HDMI 2.0A is when they added the HDR. 2.1 is actually, they get the higher refresh rates, full 48 gigabyte bandwidth. Also with the 2.1, they actually added ARC, which is an audio return channel, and EARC is enhanced audio return channel, which allows HDMI to carry both ways. Standard HDMI, is only one way, but the ARC, you're able to go both ways, which makes it nice if you got the newer receiver with that has that ARC or EARC, and your TV has a matching. You can have only one cable going from your receiver to TV, and then all your other streaming stuff from TV can be passed back to the receiver that way, which is really nice. I don't have that option, so my audio from my TV is optical. I didn't have that choice for the audio return. Now here you can see the HDMI cable I have here is from the Audio Quest. They got different labels, like different names for their cable lines. They got, Forest, which mine is the Forest. They got cinnamon, chocolate, pearl, vodka, carbon, blueberry, and some other weird names. But the main thing is, I just recommend do not use the HDMI cable that comes with your equipment. Sure, they're capable of doing what you need, but if you want the most out of everything, comes down to the quality of the materials that are used. You want to spend a little bit of extra money, but then there's a breaking, there needs to be a ceiling. I mean, is spending $500 on a cable better than a $100 cable? I don't know. I'm not going to spend that kind of money to find out. I wish I was rich and actually do a comparison for you. But I do recommend spending a little bit of money. This, Monster Cable, they got some really good cables out there. Definitely shop around, check out, Best Buy has a lot of really good, when it comes to cable choices. Also the different lengths. Especially if you're running a longer length for HDMI, you definitely want to spend more money to make sure you get a higher quality cable but if you've got a short, if your source is close to your TV and you only need 3 to 6 foot, you can get away with a kind of a cheaper cable. But like I said, don't go too cheap. Also here, there's some other things depending on how your TVs are set up. Sometimes some cables are pretty stiff that don't bend very well, and you don't want to try bending them and ruining them. They actually have 90-degree adapters, you can see here. And also to keep in mind, if you got a custom installation, if you're running cables and wires through your walls, they need to be rated for in-wall installation. As far as when it comes to fire codes, safety. So definitely keep that in mind. If you got custom installation, if you're running through your walls, definitely make sure they're rated for that. So next up, let's talk about speaker wire. And when it comes to speaker wire, there's so many choices here. And I think this is a big thing where people fall short. If you don't get some really good wire, you're gonna miss out on so much, sound. I mean, here you got some plain Jane speaker wire, nothing fancy. A lot of your simple systems start out with 18 gauge. Now here we have some, it's called flat wire, and it comes in different gauges as well for use if you need to put back behind drywall, or if it needs to run under the carpet and you don't want to bulge. So they got this flat speaker wire, and at the end you can put your own ends on. Here's some real flatter speaker wire with it has adhesive backing where you peel off and sticks. Here's some flat wire with the actual connectors with them, where you can buy it that way. Now the speaker wire comes in all kinds of different gauges. But when it comes to gauging, the lower the number, the thicker the wire is, the better. So here, a diagram kind of shows you an example of some of the different gauging. A lot of your early entry stuff is 18 gauge, and then bumping up to 16 gauge. And a lot of your home theater enthusiasts will recommend 12 gauge. And you'll get a really nice bump of improvement going to 12 gauge. Again, like the HDMI, you've got it, comes to the length, the cable runs going from your receiver to your speakers. You definitely want to have a nice beefy speaker wire if you got a longer length, as far as resistance, interference, because you got that power pushing that signal through, and the longer it needs to go, it's going to lose some of that. So here you can see what I have. It's actually available. It's actually 8 gauge. I didn't know it existed. Back when I lived in Ohio, and I come across the website and it showed it, and I'm like, holy shit. I got the link below called New Concepts. I know I paid about $2 a foot for the wire, but you can see it's a pretty beefy cable. And here's a cross section, showing the comparison to the standard cable. And here you can actually see the 8 gauge, the outer sheeting is cut away, and each strand, a negative and positive, it's wrapped in its own sheeting and has a twist, and it's covered with a big thick sheeting. And I had to buy freaking bolt cutters to cut this shit. It was pretty heavy duty. And of course all my friends were making fun of it. They're like, what you got the jump rope laying across the floor for? And that was before I actually ran it underneath the floor of my trailer back in it. I lived in a trailer at the time. So again, if you want to go all out, if you want to try some of this heavy gauge stuff, click on the link below, go to the site. Their coloring on theirs is actually a little bit different than what I got. When I got mine, the sheeting on one of the strands is blue. Now it's kind of more of a smoke color. But basically you're getting the same thing. Now we'll talk about the connectors for a speaker wire. Most receivers, like you can see on the back of mine here, it has a binding post. What you see here is a diagram of the spring clip post, which those are for your smaller speaker wire. They are not, if you got big thick wire, you're gonna have to get the pins to work. But yeah, some of the cheaper receivers, old school, have these type of posts. But definitely, hopefully you've got a better receiver that has the correct binding post. For here, you'll see the different types of connectors. Where it shows the bare wire. You got the pin connectors, the spade, single banana plugs, or the dual banana plugs. And here's a diagram showing how to connect the various types into the back, and a highlight showing how you put the bare wire in bent connectors, because they don't fit in like a banana plug, so you actually have to unscrew the binding post, and it opens up a little opening in the back, and you put the wire in that way. And here you actually highlight the banana plug wire connection, which is as far as quick unplugging, banana plugs are the way to go. That's you'll never regret. Once you go to banana plugs, it is the best way to connect speaker wire. Now here's the single banana plugs that you can get from New Concepts. Other companies probably make them as well, but they're actually from New Concepts. If you're buying an 8 gauge, these plugs do accept 8 gauge. They have little set screws on the side that you have to run all the way out, and you get the wire in there and twist the set screws back nice and tight. Works perfect. So again, summing up here for when it comes to speaker wire, I recommend at least getting 12 gauge. If nothing else, like I said, a lot of people might use 16, but 12 gauge is definitely the way to go. And if you're like me, if you really want to go crazy, go to New Concepts, get the 8 gauge, get those banana plugs, and they work. Again, to cut that shit, it's going to be very hard. Buy some bolt cutters, cut it down to length, and then go to the back and have to cut the little sheeting pieces down and whatnot and do what you need to get the plugs on. But yeah, I really like the 8 gauge. It works really well. Get the most out of your system. Again, if you're going to do an in-wall installation, make sure the speaker wire you get is rated for in-wall installation. We'll make sure you stay to code and prevent any fires or anything like that happening. So I hope you like this discussion. Please comment below what you think and what you use. Again, if you don't have good HDMI cables or good speaker wire, all the high-end equipment you're missing out. You're missing all the little subtle details, and you just need some really good, wiring cables to go with your system. So again, I hope you enjoyed this. Please comment below and let me know what you think. Check out my other videos on my channel. Like, subscribe, and turn your bell notifications on. And we'll see you soon. Geek out.